Yes, there's an old warship that's docked near San Francisco. It's called the USS Hornet. It's now a floating museum. But when she fought in World War II, she was called the Grey Ghost. Today that name seems more appropriate than ever, because some say she's haunted.
It doesn't look like your typical ghost ship. It's an aircraft carrier, 41,000 tons of metal, full of machines that were high-tech in the middle of the 20th century. But according to the people who work here, there's a phantom crew on board the USS Hornet.
I'd be just waiting to open up or moving things around, and I'd suddenly think there's someone beside me. So I'd look, there's no one there, no one there, no one there.
There was a 15-foot Christmas tree in between Hangar Bay 1 and Hangar Bay 2, and it went up to the overhead. It was really tall. And as we were walking down the ladder, just before we stepped onto the hangar deck, we saw a figure run into the Christmas tree, and they were wearing a naval uniform, from what I can make out.
Well, the hauntings on the ship are actually what we call apparitions. They are interactive figures of people. They seem to be sailors, officers, non-coms as well.
The USS Hornet saw 16 months of heavy action in World War II. At the end of her service, she made history once again when she recovered the Apollo 11 astronauts, the first men to walk on the moon. She was destined to be scrapped, but veterans lobbied hard to have her turned into a museum, and they were successful. Today she's permanently docked near San Francisco, where she attracts tourists and every now and then ghost hunters, such as Loyd Auerbach.
My role as a parapsychologist, in this case paranormal investigator, is to come in, gather information, try to pin down as much of what's happening and where it's happening on the ship, and to learn as much about apparition sightings as possible.
And that means going deep inside the Hornet to the scene of a haunting and scanning it with one of the tools of the ghost hunter's trade, a magnetic field detector. Parapsychologists, like Auerbach, believe that ghosts affect the environment around them, including magnetic fields. The other tool of ghost hunters is interviewing witnesses. Over the years, various volunteers and museum staff have reported strange things. Everything from ghostly presences to unexplained voices and sounds to sightings of sailors in World War II uniforms.
Several of the people over the years we've been coming here have agreed to be interviewed on camera, and their testimony's been really interesting. Bob Rogers, for example, the former marketing director of the Hornet, had a really interesting experience, one of several, here in the ladder going down to the engine room.
I could see a man right down here on the next ladder in a khaki uniform come around as if he was going ahead of me, and it just turned the corner and started down the next ladder, and it had to be either a chief petty officer or an officer, because they'd be the ones that wear khaki uniforms. So I went down the ladder like this, turned the light on, and continued on down into the engine room. And when I got into the engine room, there was no one here.
One of the more interesting experiences we recorded on the ship happened right outside the flag bridge right here, to a man who just does not believe in ghosts. He had such an intense, incredibly clear experience that even though he doesn't believe in ghosts, he just simply cannot explain it. He accepts it.
Mark and I were standing here talking, and we both looked over here, and there was a gentleman in khaki with an overseas hat on, with a short-sleeved khaki shirt, full uniform, standing right there at the top of the ladder. He turned around and looked over his shoulder and went right down the ladder. And I went down the ladder after him. And I didn't find anybody.
Okay, this is the forecastle. That's short for forecastle. It's the anchor chain windlass room. This is where they keep the anchor chain machinery and the anchor chains themselves. The chain lockers are forward. When me and Jim were in here painting last year, he was facing that direction, and I was facing this direction painting, and I saw two figures standing up here, one in khakis and one in work blues. And I turned around and said, Jim, do you see that officer and that enlisted guy standing up there? He goes, turns around, I don't see anybody. They were gone in a split second, but I saw them, and I wasn't suffering from paint fumes.
It might sound like the Hornet is kind of a scary place to have a job, but people who work on board don't think so.
For me, it's a comfort. Whoever is around me is protecting me, looking after me. It's not a threat. I don't feel threatened. I actually feel as if they welcome me. It sounds crazy, but that's the way I feel.
Why do they claim the ghosts are so friendly? Well, according to some, it's because the spirits are glad their ship is now a museum.
It seems that the reason why this ship, why they have so many ghosts, is because this ship is such a part of American history. And the ghosts, being people who worked on the ship, who were serving about the ship, wanted to make sure the ship did survive, that it actually taught a lesson against war for future generations.
Of course, there aren't too many scientists who believe in ghosts. To them, haunting spirits are the product of an overactive imagination. But Auerbach isn't spooked by skeptics.
You know, there are folks who are just simply not going to believe, and that's fine. I really don't care. I don't really want to try to convince people. The reality is, though, that people, dozens and dozens of people are having these experiences aboard the ship and in other places. We're trying to find out what's causing those experiences. Our best model right now is a ghost.
Whether or not she is a ghost ship, it's a fact. The USS Hornet survived a near-death experience. Her rescue from the scrapyard means the people of San Francisco will have a gray ghost in their neighborhood for many years to come.